Hello, friends. I've been sitting here at this old kitchen table for nearly 3 hours now, and the numbers on this yellow legal pad simply refuse to cooperate anymore. I am Arthur, a 66-year-old man who served his country and spent 40 long years working in the trades. You would think that after all that, I'd have earned a bit of predictable math. Instead, I am staring at a grocery receipt that looks like a ransom note from a future I never signed up for. I am living in my long-time home here in the suburbs, a place that used to feel like a sanctuary. But lately the coffee is always cold, and the radiator is clicking like a countdown timer I cannot stop. Before we go further into this journey, please subscribe to the channel so we can stay connected. Have you ever felt like the ground is shifting beneath your feet, while everyone else pretends everything is fine? It is a heavy, silent weight on the soul. I look at my hands, scarred and calloused from decades of honest labor, and I feel a strange sense of betrayal. The system promised a harvest for those who sowed the seeds of hard work, but the soil has been salted by forces I can't even see. I'm a veteran, which means I'm supposed to understand strategy and endurance. But how do you fight an enemy that attacks through the slow erosion of your purchasing power? It feels like a silent, invisible thief. Every single morning, I check the balance on my fixed income and watch it shrink against the tide of rising costs. It is not just about the price of eggs or utility bills sprouting extra digits every month. It is the crushing weight of knowing the finish line keeps moving further away, while my legs are getting heavier. Why is it that the more we give to the machine, the less we seem to have left for our own basic human dignity? There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes with realizing you are an outcast in your own zip code because you cannot afford the luxury of existing. These suburbs feel like a beautifully landscaped cage, where the bars are made of property taxes and zoning laws. I see my younger neighbors drowning in debt, pretending their lives are stable while the foundation of our shared reality is cracking. We are all just one bad month away from the edge of the map. I decided to record this because I know I am not the only one feeling this low-frequency hum of anxiety in my bones. This is not a political rant. It is a survival report from the front lines of a collapsing middle class. We were told to save, to invest, and to trust the institutions to guard our future. But the guards have left the gate wide open. I look at my medals and wonder if the country still recognizes me. The supermarket is where reality hits the hardest, under those buzzing fluorescent lights that make everything look pale. I saw a woman my age yesterday, carefully putting a carton of milk back because she had to choose between calcium and her medication. Please share your own stories in the comments below so we can support each other. I refuse to be a victim of this quiet desperation any longer. Until next time, friends, let us rise together. See you in the next video. I am Arthur, and I am still sitting here, staring at these numbers until my eyes burn from the strain. It is a bitter pill to swallow when you realize that 40 years of honest sweat does not count for much in a world run by spreadsheets. I followed every rule they gave me, from the service to the trades, but the reward is a shrinking bank account and a cold house. Well, it feels like the system is designed to harvest us rather than help us survive. Before I dive deeper into this mess, please subscribe to the channel so we can face this storm as a unit. Have you noticed how the simple act of existing has become a luxury item we can no longer afford? It is not just bad luck. It is a calculated erosion of our dignity by forces that do not even know our names. I feel like a ghost haunting my own life, watching the value of my hard-earned pension evaporate like morning mist in a hot sun. So, let us talk about the grocery store, that fluorescent-lit arena where reality hits you square in the jaw every Tuesday. I see the prices jumping every single week, and I wonder how anyone is expected to keep their head above water. It is a quiet, polite form of violence that steals the food from a retiree's plate, while the talking heads on the news call it a minor adjustment. How is this freedom when the basic necessities of life are held for ransom by greed? Now, it is not just the food, it is the very roof over my head that feels like it is being taxed away. These local zoning laws are a maze designed to keep us dependent on the grid and the big developers. I cannot even put up a decent garden shed or collect the rain without some bureaucrat knocking on my door with a fine. It is a beautifully landscaped cage where the bars are made of property taxes and endless soul-crushing regulations that only favor corporate profit. I look at my hands, still rough from decades of carpentry and plumbing, and I feel a profound sense of failure. Why did I work so hard if the finish line just keeps moving further away every time I get close? I did everything right, yet here I am, feeling like an outcast in the very neighborhood I helped build with my own 2 hands. It is a heavy, silent weight that makes you question every decision you ever made for the sake of your family. Well, it happened that I spent my youth defending a concept of liberty that does not seem to apply to the man I am today. How can we call ourselves free when we are tethered to a system that penalizes self-reliance at every single turn? They want us predictable, urbanized, and paying rent for the privilege of being managed by people who have never held a shovel. It is a systemic failure that targets the very backbone of the country, leaving us fractured and isolated. I see my younger neighbors across the street, and I see the same look of quiet desperation hidden behind their expensive lawns. They are drowning in debt, pretending their lives are stable, while the foundation of our shared reality is cracking beneath their feet. We are all just one bad month, one medical bill, or one tax hike away from the edge of the map. Why do we keep playing a game where the rules are clearly designed to make every single player lose eventually? Then there is the loneliness that comes from realizing the community has been replaced by a collection of consumers who are too tired to speak. We have become so accustomed to the convenience of the trap that we have lost the basic instinct for the hunt and for each other. I feel like a relic of a time when a man's word meant something, and $1 was a fair trade for a day's labor. Now, money is just a digital lie that loses soul. What are we supposed to do when the institutions we were told to trust leave the gates wide open for the thieves? I look at my medals on the wall, and I wonder if the country I fought for even recognizes me anymore. It is a betrayal that cuts deeper than any physical wound I received in the service. The system promised a harvest for those who sowed the seeds of work, but they salted the soil while we were busy building our honest lives. Every morning, checking that fixed income balance feels like watching a countdown timer on a bomb I cannot defuse. It is a slow-motion catastrophe that the elites call an economic cycle, but for me, it is the difference between heat and a cold winter. How did we let them turn our survival into a commodity that can be traded on a floor in New York? It is a dehumanizing process that turns every citizen into a data point on a very grim corporate spreadsheet. Now, the frustration boils over when I realize that even the land I supposedly own is not truly mine to control. Between the zoning boards and the homeowners associations, they have managed to outlaw the very skills our grandfathers used to survive the Depression. You cannot be independent in a place that requires a permit for a clothesline or a small flock of chickens. It is a deliberate strategy to keep us chained to the supermarket and the utility companies for our entire lives. I am tired of being told that it is my fault for not saving enough, or for not being savvy with digital investments. I spent my life building things that actually exist, like houses, bridges, and a family, not chasing shadows on a screen. Why is the labor of a man's hands valued so much less than the clicking of a keyboard in some air-conditioned office? It is a distortion of reality that has led us directly into this dark, tightening loop of total dependency. Well, I decided to record this because the silence in these suburbs is getting too loud for me to bear. It is the silence of people who are too afraid to admit that the math has stopped working for them too. We are all pretending to be middle class, while our purchasing power is being siphoned off by the central banks and the bureaucrats. It is a survival report from the front lines of a collapsing dream, and I refuse to go down without a fight. I remember when a town was a place where people looked out for one another, not just a collection of tax-paying units. Now the system thrives on our isolation, making us believe that every neighbor is a competitor for the few remaining scraps of prosperity. How can we build resilience when we are taught to fear the very people who should be our allies in this struggle? It is a masterclass in division, designed to keep us from noticing the rot in the beams. So I have been looking at the maps and the old books, searching for a way to break this connection to the grid. The bureaucracy has made me feel small, buried under layers of regulations that are always presented as being for my safety. But I know the truth. They are not keeping me safe. They are keeping me compliant and easily harvested by the state. I am done asking for permission to live a life that has meaning and basic human dignity again. There is a specific kind of anger that comes when you realize the game was rigged from the very start of the play. I worked 40 years in the trades, paid my dues, and served my time, only to find the finish line is a mirage. The system wants us to be predictable and tethered to a debt we can never hope to pay back. It is a plantation with invisible fences, and the only way to escape is to stop believing in the lie. Now I see the woman at the store, choosing between her calcium and her blood pressure meds, and it breaks my heart. That is the systemic failure they never talk about on the news, because it is too honest for their polished narratives. It is a quiet, polite desperation that eats away at the soul until there is nothing left but threads and excuses. Why are we sacrificing our elders on the altar of a broken economy that only benefits the top 1%? Well, it happened that I realized my veterans' pension is just a chain they use to keep me in line. They give you just enough to keep you from starving, but not enough to ever be truly free of their control. How is this the land of the free, when every basic survival need is controlled by a corporation or a government agency? I'm looking for the gaps in the fence, the places where a man can still stand on his own feet. I am not just a grumpy old man shouting at clouds. I am a strategist looking for a way to win a losing war. The math has failed us because it forgot about the human spirit, the one variable that can never be fully predicted or managed. We have the skills, we have the strength, and we have the right to exist without being harvested like a crop. It is time to stop looking at the screen for answers and start looking at our hands. Please share your own stories in the comments below, because I need to know I am not alone in this fight today. Your experiences are the fuel that keeps this journey moving forward, and together we can map out a way to true autonomy. I want to hear about the struggles you face and the small victories you have managed to win against the machine. We are a community of survivors, and our collective knowledge is the most valuable resource we have left. In the next video, I am going to show you the search for a piece of land that is actually real. I am moving towards something that finally makes sense, trading this suburban illusion for a reality I can touch and defend with my life. It is going to be hard, and my joints are going to ache more than they already do, but at least the struggle will be mine. I would rather sweat for myself than starve for a system that failed. I am packing my bags and sharpening my tools because the time for talk is over and the time for action is here. Do not let them tell you that you are too old or too insignificant to make a change in your life. You have the power to withdraw your consent from a machine that does not care if you live or die. Until next time, friends, let us rise together and reclaim the life we were always meant to live. See you soon. I sat at this kitchen table until 3 in the morning, watching the moonlight crawl across the floor like a slow, indifferent ghost. The silence in this house finally became too loud to ignore, punctuated by the clicking of a radiator I can no longer afford to fix properly. It was not just one bill that broke me, but the collective weight of 1,000 small betrayals by a system that views my life as a line item. I am done waiting for a miracle. Well, it happened that I realized I have been playing a rigged game where the house always wins and the players eventually starve. Why should I keep pouring my dwindling energy into a suburban dream that has curdled into a nightmare of property taxes and zoning restrictions? These people do not care about Arthur. They only care about the predictable flow of my remaining resources into their coffers. I am withdrawing my consent from this machine because I refuse to be harvested like a crop for their benefit. Now the decision is made, and for the first time in years, I can actually breathe without that familiar tightness in my chest. I am putting this house on the market and walking away from the manicured lawns and the invisible fences of the grid. It is terrifying to leave the only stability I have known, but staying here is a slow death by 1,000 paper cuts. I would rather face the wild unknown than sit here waiting for the lights to flicker out. I am trading this suburban illusion for a reality I can touch, smell, and defend with my own 2 calloused hands. My veteran's pension might not buy much in the city, but out where the bureaucracy is thin, it can be the foundation of a fortress of autonomy. Some might say I am losing my mind at 66, but I believe I am finally finding it under all this clutter. We were meant to be sovereign beings, not just tax-paying units in a corporate spreadsheet. The camper in the driveway is no longer a relic of past vacations. It is my life raft for the journey ahead into the rugged north. I am stripping out the useless luxuries and packing my essential tools, the ones that actually produce value in the real world. Every item I sell or give away feels like shedding a layer of a heavy, wet coat I have been wearing for decades. It is time to stop asking for permission to exist and start living again. Please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts below, because your support is the only community I have left right now. Have you ever stood on the edge of a cliff and realized the only way to survive was to jump? I am taking that leap today, and I want you to see exactly what happens when a man stops being afraid. In the next video, I will show you the search for the land. Until next time, friends, let us rise together. I stood in the empty living room yesterday, watching the realtor plant that "for sale" sign in the yard, like a flag of surrender to the old life. Before we continue this journey of transformation, please subscribe to the channel so we can stay connected as a community. It took 3 decades to fill this house with memories and clutter, but only 48 hours to realize most of it was dead weight holding me back. Selling everything I owned felt like a surgical extraction of a persona I don't respect. After the house closed, I spent 2 weeks scouring every classified ad and back alley lot for a vessel that could actually handle the rugged path I am choosing now. I finally found an old, sturdy 1994 4-season camper that smelled of stale cigarettes and forgotten summers, but its bones were solid and its frame was steel. I spent 12 hours a day underneath that rig, replacing rusted brake lines and checking the leaf springs with hands that ache from the cold and the grease. It is hard, dirty work now. Well, it happened that I had to gut the interior to make room for the tools of my new trade, replacing the flimsy dinette with a sturdy workbench made of reclaimed oak. I'm installing a heavy-duty battery bank and a pure sine wave inverter, because the grid is a leash I am finally cutting for good. Every screw I turn and every wire I crimp is a declaration of independence from a utility company that has been harvesting my pension for far too long. This is strategic, tactical retrofitting. People see these videos of travelers and think it is all sunsets and easy roads. But they do not see the frantic research into terrain maps and soil drainage. I have been studying topographical charts until my vision blurs, looking for that one sweet spot where the bureaucracy is too thin to choke the sunlight. Freedom demands a level of discipline and sweat that most people are simply too comfortable to entertain in their climate-controlled lives. I am tired, my back is screaming, but my spirit is alive and ready. I pulled out of the driveway for the last time this morning, the engine of the old truck roaring as it strained against the weight of my new life. Watching the familiar suburban skyline shrink in the rearview mirror felt like waking up from a long, expensive fever dream that lasted 40 years. The highway is a grey ribbon of uncertainty, and every mile I put between myself and that zip code feels like a gallon of fresh oxygen entering my lungs. I am heading north, toward the rugged hills. It has not been a smooth start, as I already had to pull over twice to tighten the weight distribution hitch and fix a leaking propane line that rattled loose. You realize very quickly that out here, there is no landlord or city maintenance crew coming to save you when things go sideways in the rain. I made a mistake with the water pump yesterday and ended up with a soaked floor. But that is the price of learning how to be the master of my own domain in this world. I have 3 specific properties mapped out, each one more remote and neglected than the last, which is exactly what I am looking for in a permanent base. One is a rocky hillside with a seasonal creek, and another is a timber-heavy lot that hasn't seen a human footprint in a decade. I am looking for a place where I can disappear into the work of building a fortress of autonomy without a building inspector breathing down my neck. It is a gamble, but I bet on my own hands. This journey is just beginning, and the weight of the unknown is heavy, but the alternative was a slow, polite death in a suburb that didn't want me. I am trading my comfort for a chance at dignity, and I hope you have the courage to look at your own life with the same brutal honesty today. In the next video, I am going to show you the specific piece of land I found and why it might be the answer. Until next time, friends, let us rise together now. I stepped out of the truck and my boots finally met the raw, unpaved earth of this rugged northern ridge for the very first time today. The air up here doesn't just sit around. It has a sharp, pine-scented bite that wakes up lungs I didn't even know were sleeping back in the smog of the suburbs. There is no hum of distant traffic or the clicking of a neighbour's sprinklers, just the deep, ancient silence of the timber waiting for a man's hand. For months I carried the weight of feeling like a failure, a man discarded by a system he served faithfully for over 40 long years. But as I stand here, looking at the way the golden light filters through these hemlock branches, that heavy sense of defeat is evaporating like morning mist on a hot pond. This isn't a retreat into the woods out of weakness. It is a calculated advance toward a sovereignty that the banks could never possibly understand or quantify. I look down at my calloused hands, the same ones that felt so useless staring at those grocery receipts on my old kitchen table just a few weeks ago. Out here, these scars and this strength are the only currency that actually matters when the sun starts to dip below the jagged horizon. I don't need a permit to breathe this air or a credit score to justify my existence to some bureaucrat in a distant, air-conditioned office building anymore. I am finally truly home. This peace is the reward for having the courage to walk away from a beautifully landscaped cage before the door was locked for good. Please share your own small victories in the comments below, so we can continue to build this network of resilience together across the miles. In the next video, I will show you how I am setting up the first shelter and securing the water source for the winter ahead. Until next time, friends, let us rise together. Well, it happened that I realized freedom isn't about having everything easy, but about having the right to struggle for something that is actually yours. I am watching the shadows stretch across the clearing, and for the first time in a decade, my heart isn't pounding with that low-frequency hum of anxiety. I am the master of this small, rocky patch of the world, and that is enough for any man. Until next time, friends, let us rise together. Looking back at that cold kitchen table, I finally understand that true security was never going to come from a government check or a fluctuating stock market. We have been conditioned to believe that dependency is safety, but that is the greatest lie the system ever sold us. Real protection is found in the calloused texture of my palms and the steady flow of that creek behind my new home. It is about reclaiming the basic skills our grandfathers used to survive when the world went dark. I will be honest with you all, because being vulnerable is the only way we can truly heal from the betrayal of the modern economy. There were nights when the fear of the unknown felt heavier than the timber I was hauling, making my old joints scream in protest. But that pain is honest, unlike the hollow anxiety of watching a digital bank balance evaporate into thin air. Financial freedom is not about having a surplus of paper, it is about having a surplus of self-reliance and grit. We must stop viewing each other as competitors for the remaining scraps of a dying dream and start seeing ourselves as a unified front of survivors. The system thrives on our isolation, keeping us tucked away in our suburban boxes where we are easily harvested by the banks and the taxman. But out here, in the quiet places, I see a movement growing among the determined and the brave who choose dignity over comfort. We are building a new neighborhood based on mutual aid and shared, hard-won wisdom. I am asking you to join this conversation by subscribing to the channel and sharing your own stories of struggle and triumph in the comments below. Your voice is a vital piece of the map we are drawing together to navigate this collapsing landscape toward a more sovereign future. Don't let them shame you for wanting a simpler life, or for refusing to play a rigged game that was designed for you to lose. We are a community of producers, reclaiming our power one garden and generator at a time. The sun is dipping below the ridge now, reminding me that the work of a free man is never truly finished, but it is always deeply meaningful. I have traded the predictable misery of the grid for the unpredictable joy of true autonomy, and I have never felt more alive at 66. Take a good look at your own hands today, and remember the incredible strength that lives within your own spirit when you stop asking for permission. Until next time, everyone, let us rise together. Stay strong.